And we had some original language in the bill, and I got this committee sub late after we'd already adjourned yesterday, and only had the opportunity to send it out to some interested stakeholders last night, and got feedback on it this morning. If you will look at the committee sub on lines 106, this is the negotiated, the language about if you have an indigent patient that's adjudicated incompetent and goes through the involuntary commitment process, the county is responsible for their placement. So this bill was to try to limit the amount that a county would have to pay if they had to put that person in a private medical facility. The purpose was to allow the county to get a negotiated rate, or to allow the county to only pay the Medicaid rate and no more. But I have some concerns with this language that is in here, because I mean, the counties are the ones that are going to have to deal with this. And I think the committee sub kind of gummed up the language more based on what the attorneys that I've sent it to that represent the counties. And so I want to do what is going to help the counties, but not create another problem. I want to go back closer to the original language that we had in the bill to start with. So I think the concern is that we don't want to create more problems. The county is already responsible for the cost of commitment. So I think restating some of that in different terms could cause us a problem. Where this underlying language is in this bill, I want to strike that language and make this amendment say that the county of residence is responsible for the cost of commitment, but the treatment costs are limited to a negotiated rate or Medicaid reimbursement in the absence of a negotiated rate. You're welcome to question my amendment.
Okay, I just want to make sure I'm understanding. So we're gonna, because right now the language, well, the original language was just treatment. And then based on.
Well, they're already responsible for commitment. Correct, Steve? Would you like to speak, Steve?
Yeah, Steve Webb, supervisor here. So we had our attorney look over this, and based on my conversation with him regarding adding the attention, I guess it kind of make things a lot less clear. And we're still trying to understand what the overall goal, what's being accomplished in terms of saving on the medical side down to the negotiated rates and that reimbursement rate. We know that actually works for the county. We do that now with inmates and pre-trial detainees. So that's not a problem. But he's informed us that we're currently responsible for commitment. And the original language at first regarding just having us to be able to negotiate against the indigent individuals down to that Medicaid reimbursement rate would not be a problem. But bringing in the attention could cause problems based on how efficient. Yeah, but I get further work on it.
So I think going back to the original language is what you would prefer, basically.
Yes, that's what our legal tells us.
Is going back to the original language of the bill.
Okay. And let me stick with my counties.
Okay.
Where this came from.
Mhm. So I think going back to the original language of the bill that we had.
I think he wanted to explain what his county.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh, no. So we're trying to address this. Like we're pretty hot. Our CSU slashes. So the idea was the county is currently sending them to one of the hospitals, to the ER. And they may be there for a couple of days, couple of weeks. The thought was that if they ever were provided, right now there's no mechanism for our county board to say there's no mechanism for them to negotiate this rate with those hospitals.
And we have no problem. We have no problem with that. We just feel like this language that's bringing in the detainment.
They're
Or
not
the-
talking about detention in jail. It's about in the hospital.
Mhm.
If you added the word medical, would that help?
I think,
you
I think going back to the original language would potentially clear that up. And go ahead, Steve.
So based on our council, I'm just following suit.
Mhm.
Informing us, yeah.
Mhm.
If you all, threaten, we further work on it, maybe find a middle ground. So we can
But I think to right now, to keep it going, I think the amendment would be to go back to the original language. And then if we find something that we can tweak on the floor as a floor amendment, then we could better straighten that out on the floor. But I agree that when I read this, I just felt like it brought more question into the situation than what we had to begin with. What we want to do is we know that some of those counties have no other way to detain those folks except in their jail, some of these smaller counties. My concern was to make sure that we weren't requiring them to take them to a hospital if they couldn't. Some counties can't afford the Medicaid rate. So I didn't want to do something that would adversely affect some of these other counties. So I think let's leave it. My best judgment is let's leave it like it is. Go ahead and pass it with the original language. And by the time we get to the floor, if we need a floor amendment to tweak shall to may, because that was one thing that was brought up, I think we can fix that on the floor. Is that all right with you? Okay. All right. So my motion is to go back to the original language that just basically gives the counties the authority to negotiate with a private provider. And if there's no negotiated rate, then they would not be responsible for more than the Medicaid rate.
You're just gonna title sufficient to pass.
Title
and send
sufficient
it-
to pass
send
on,
it on.
on the original bill, not the committee sub.
We're voting, this proposed amendment, this committee sub count.
Gone. We're going back on the original language,
We have a copy.
which yes. So, title sufficient do pass. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, that bill will be reported and that was it for this morning. And we will continue to look at that and make sure that all the parties are happy that we're not creating any unintended consequence. Okay, thank you. Rise and report. That's fine. We're good. We got it. You want to powwow with us?
Even though
I'm in the category of
it's not
personnel.
good, it goes reported to Zanetta.